Welcome to Divine Decode, the space where consciousness meets compassion. Tonight, we journey into the unseen, the quiet realm of our unconscious thoughts. Joining us is Andrew Wilson, who is a transformation coach, QHHT practitioner, author, and host of Beyond Transcendence. Through his work, Andrew helps high achievers move beyond emotional resistance, reconnect with their inner truth, and awaken to the wisdom that lies beneath the noise of the mind. Our conversation tonight is not just about thinking, it's about remembering the forgotten layers that silently shape who we become and how we awareness can rewrite even the oldest patterns of our story. And with that note, let's dive in. First of all, thank you, Andrew. Thank you for being on the show. It's such an honor to host you today.
It's an honor to be here.
So to start with, Andrew, you often say that so much of who we are, it lives below the surface. And I truly agree to that and I truly buy that. Why do you think the unconscious holds such power over our choices as if it's quietly scripting our lives while we play out the lines? So what do you have to say about that?
I mean, most of our thoughts we aren't aware of. We unconsciously don't even know that these thoughts are happening, and it creates our reality. So if you tell yourself day in, day out that you're not worthy, you're not wonderful, then you begin to believe that, and you don't even have to say it. You just have to think it. And when we become more aware of our thoughts, we also can stop these thoughts from accumulating, creating our realities around us. So, the one thing I've learned along my journey is with our thoughts, we can create our reality. We can also create a version of ourselves. I mean, my version that I created before I found spirituality and the metaphysical side was I was a complete I was a narcissist. I didn't know how to be a communicator. I didn't know how to be respectful. I didn't know how to show someone that I cared about them because I didn't know what feelings were because I wrapped myself in this reality and this identity of being broken and that it was all poor me, and that I needed to like justify being this person and blaming this version of myself on other people instead of taking ownership for the person that I became. And until I became aware of it, you kind of have an argument with someone and you argue with this person all the time, but you never ask yourself why you're arguing with this person to begin with. And it was then that I started to ask myself, like, why is this bothering me? And it turns out that it was triggering me because I had unresolved healing that I had to do. And because I had unresolved healing, I was continuing to argue and fight for no reason. And I would always look for just to get a rise out of people. And I never understood why. And it was because what I was seeing in them was the version of me I wanted to be. And I was envious, or not envious. I was jealous, and it took a lot for me to do the work within. Like I had to learn how to rebuild myself from the inside out before I could even attempt to be a successful husband or partner or even coworker, because I realized that when we do the work within ourselves and we actually take a deep, long look and within ourselves and realize, okay, these people are just on the same journey as I am, and why should they be treated any less because I didn't realize it at the time. But when you become aware of being aware of your feelings, you kind of start to like look yourself in the mirror and understand, okay, this is what I need to work on. This is what I need to know, and this is what I need to forgive. And when you start to do that, um, people around you don't really start to affect you anymore. They can't get a rise out of you because the reason they were getting a rise out of you to begin with is because of you. And until we take accountability for our actions, our trauma, our life, we'll never really understand why we feel the way we feel. And we think that self-medicating is the right way to go, but it's not. I did it for a long time, and it brings you back to the same scenario. So the best technique that I learned is through meditation, learned hypnosis, breath work, journaling. Find something that's gonna basically help you to grow and understand you, and spend more time with you. Spend less time on your phone. Spend less time around people and start to get to know you, because until you're comfortable with you, you're not going to be comfortable around anyone else.
That makes much sense, and that's wonderful because as you mentioned, being aware of your own feelings, that is such a great thing to do and to be at, such a great place to be at. And we often it's a very off topic. I don't think it's an off topic thing, but yeah, it might go. But if we even bring in Maslow's hierarchy over here, we suddenly we just look at these four needs, and then we think that, okay, self actualization, that is something which is very you know um enlightenment type. But that is also, this is also self actualization, right? Knowing about your own self, and the introspection that goes through with that, and that is a need, and that is a genuine need to understand who you are and to take away the path. So do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I mean, when you take accountability for yourself, I mean, you'll start to see the pattern too. Like even like when you become ill, or if you're like you're aching, and the reason you're aching is because you told yourself you were ill. You told yourself you were aching. Cancel, cancel, cancel. And the fact of the matter is, like, we create our realities. Like, we create our illnesses, we create our disease. Like, the reason you have a disease is because your memory, your brain and you are not aligned with one another, and you are holding on to negative emotions. You're not dealing with the negative emotions, and that's what's causing your illness. That's what's causing your disease. That's what's causing your aches and pains, because your body is a communicator, and it's sending you a message to go on a different path, to relax, to rest, because burnout is a real thing. I know I burnt out many times, and especially in some of the industries I used to work in, especially the oil and gas sector. Like, I remember doing a job where I was on it for 65 days in a row. And when I came back from that job, I was so burnt out, but I didn't allow myself to rest or relax, and said, "You're isolated for that long in a camp in the middle of nowhere." And the one thing I took for granted was being in nature. And once you get back from your long stints, you don't really rest. You kind of party, and then you don't really get time to recuperate, and then you're on to the next job. So your mind doesn't really get time to rest. Your body doesn't get time to rest or anything. But the biggest thing I've learned now with what I could have done back then was take more time out with nature, and use this time away to work on myself, and to focus on what I want and what I want to achieve and what my goals are. Like, how many of you out there have goals that you have set in mind? How many of you have don't celebrate your small wins? Like, any small win, it doesn't matter. It doesn't always have to be money. It could be like an achievement. It could be growth. It could be changing your diet. It could be getting off smoking, like anything like that. Like, celebrate anything that's a win, because it also wires your mind to thinking in a more positive and reflective way instead of a negative victim mindset. So yeah, I definitely agree that we have to look within ourselves before we can look at others and judge others.
That is so true, and that makes so much sense. We talked about patterns, and to talk about it furthermore, when we begin to see these patterns, right, like really see them, it can feel unsettling, even painful sometimes, the unhealthy patterns that we have. So how do we meet that awareness with compassion and instead of judgment, judging ourselves? We sometimes judge ourselves so much that we, instead of doing good, we do more harm to ourselves in that way. So, how do we meet that awareness with compassion? And yes, what is your say on that?
Let's start with loving yourself. Like, you haven't given yourself any love. You think that you are bound to be this version of yourself. And when you realize you're not bound to be this version and you can change the course of your life at any moment, you can change the version of yourself at any moment. But looking in the mirror and learning to love yourself, love the person that you are from within, life gets, excuse me, so much easier, especially when you're faced with challenges or triggers. Then you realize, okay, why is this triggering me? You start to ask yourself these questions and you learn, okay, well, what do we not like about that? And can we forgive that? And I love you for figuring that out. Like, talk to your body, even talk to your body is a living organism. It's alive, just like everything else in the world is alive because everything is energy. And the more you communicate with your body, yourself, learn to talk to yourself, even like you hear about affirmations. You don't even have to use affirmations. Just tell your body it's beautiful. Tell your body it's amazing. Like, and you almost need to repeat it 3 times for it to actually start to unconsciously, you start to think it and you start to say it. So it's a good routine to get into, just learning to love yourself, really. It's just the easiest thing you can do in life is love yourself. And when you start to love yourself, you just start to love others and you start to see not the version of a person that's trying to harm you. You see a person and you see a version of a person that you want to show empathy for and you want to help that person instead. And you will wish nothing but positive thoughts their way. And you see them in a different version of themselves and you transfer that energy to that person and you'll be amazed at the outcome that that person will have. It may not happen right away, but eventually down the road that something will spark in them and then it'll be passed to the next person. So we were taught to compete with one another. We're taught that to have enemies, but the real enemy is you. The real enemy is fear. And until you realize that you are your own enemy, you are your own worst enemy, and the enemy within you is fear. When you let fear go and you learn to love, you can accomplish anything. You can be around anyone, and you can forgive those who have wronged you in the past. And you can see them as a different version, not the version you remember, not the version you held on to for so many years. And you let that weight, that anger, that hate just feed and poison your mind and your soul. Let it go. The second you let it go, life gets easier. You no longer need medication because you're letting go of all that weight. So therefore your body is no longer um, trying to communicate with you because you're finally listening.
That's very insightful, and thank you for your wisdom on that. Um, as we continue with this, our thoughts and emotions, they are very deeply intertwined, right? And we're genuinely talking about that, how emotions regulate thoughts, and likewise, One feeding the other in endless loops is what the relationship between both of these is. So, how do you guide someone to step out of that unconscious cycle of reaction and into conscious creation? Because, loving ourselves is what one does. Like, doing that that's a big step, but what ahead of that? And how to, step out of the unconscious cycle that we get stuck in. So, what is your mantra for that?
Let's just kind of like have a conversation with the person that I'm working with and see where their trauma is keeping them at. And then we go to that event and then we see it as something that it's not. And we sort of rewire the mind into thinking that they're actually beautiful, they're stronger, they're amazing. And we just keep playing that uh, back in the mind over and over again. And then the person no longer sees that event as that way of holding on to that trauma. So they don't have to relive it. It's more just rewiring the mind and basically reversing whatever happened to them and forgiving for it happening and forgiving themselves for allowing it to control them for so long.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. That's brilliant. And thank you for that liberating thought. Because, it's so beautifully said, And one thing that I have to add up to this is that, healing the mind, it truly begins when we listen with the heart, and that is what you've been reinstating every time. And thank you for that, because that is something that stays constant, yet we do not, introspect or resonate with that. Also, for anybody who's listening who feels trapped in repetitive thoughts or patterns that won't seem to shift, what is the first gentle step towards freedom? And how can one begin to discern the quiet voice of intuition from the echo of old conditioning? So it's also about freedom, but also how to lose up yourself or free yourself from the echo of old conditionings and fixtures or the fixations that an individual goes through.
I mean, you could start with being in an area where there's no noise, and then you can listen to your thoughts. Even like when you're in the shower or if you're out in nature, you start to pay attention. Like with me, if I was like, say, distracted from anything I was doing, I would reflect on a lot of outcomes that were created by me in a negative way. And I would now see myself and forgive myself for that part of me that hurt those people. And um, it's about reflecting really in the most, um, the most like, I don't know, like you're doing something totally different out of your norm. And then all of a sudden that thought pops in your head and you're wondering why this thought's in your head. And it's time to reflect. And most of the time, what I would used to do would be just I'd start to write or journal it why I'm having this thought, and then I would ask myself, "What is this bringing up?" And it brings up old trauma. So I mean, people out there, you'll just have random thoughts that'll pop in your head, and you can either write them down or even use a voice note just to keep them in mind because eventually you'll delete and distort and generalize that thought that just came into your head. And that's a moment of growth right there when you get that aha moment. It's like, oh, I used to do this. Or it's like, oh, this version of me used to be bothered by this, but now I'm not bothered by it anymore. And that's a win. So you celebrate that. And the more you like the unconscious mind is like a 2-year-old. So the more you reward it, the more it wants to work alongside of you. But if you want something, this is how the law of attraction works. The one thing I've learned from my mentors is if you want something bad enough, but you're putting any doubt or fear on it, that's what you're going to get instead is doubt and fear. It's really interesting how the mind works and how if wires and fires. So if you're like doing something that's really enlightening, or not even enlightening, something that's really fun and you just love every minute of it, your brain is like glowing. It's like firing. It's like Christmas almost. It's like lighting up the moment because your receptors are just going off. And but when you're in a negative mindset, it's dark. You're in the darkness. There's no light. There's no brightness. And your body is just screaming at you to start to listen, and you don't want to listen. So it's mainly just about like learning to be with you. And until you're with you, you're going to continue down the same path. You have to take ownership. You have to take accountability. If you don't take accountability for you, nobody else is going to be able to help you other than you. And you can get guidance. You can go to a therapist. You can do whatever you think is going to help you. But in the end, nothing's going to help you unless you do it for you. Not for what somebody else told you, not someone else's idea. It has to be your idea, and it has to be your way. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So even when I work with clients, sometimes sessions don't work because they're just not ready. Until you're actually ready, until you actually know you are ready, is when you start to do the work within yourself.
That is amazing. And that is so true, nobody else is going to do that for you, and it's just you who has to do it. Um, and that is where everything begins, and that is where everything stops, that it's just you and you have to do something for yourself. Nobody else would show up for you when you actually need, like, for your own soul, for your own self. Do it for you. And listeners, what a profound journey with Andrew Wilson today. A reminder that transformation does not always roar, sometimes it whispers from within. Our unconscious isn't the enemy, it's the map back home to ourselves. And if this conversation stirred something in you, take a breath, sit with the silence between your thoughts, because in that stillness, the truths you've been seeking may already be waiting. I am Pragya Malvia, and you've been listening to Divine Decode, where we explore the stories, symbols, and souls shaping our awakening. Until next time, keep decoding the divine within.